Have you ever noticed how your paycheck disappears faster than your motivation on a Monday morning? You tell yourself it's fine because everyone else seems to be doing the same thing, just louder on Instagram. The problem is that most advice about money in your 20s skips the boring part, where decisions quietly pile up. There's a system working in the background that turns convenience into commitment and calls it adulting. It doesn't ruin your life, it just slowly replaces flexibility with payments you stop questioning. If you want to keep noticing stuff like this, you can like and subscribe so you don't miss future explanations, including the ones where I catch myself doing it too. Today we're going to unpack why a few specific investments quietly decide how stressed your future self gets. Number 1, reliable transportation without long-term debt. Why does a car feel like a personal milestone instead of what it is, which is a machine that moves you and then slowly dissolves? Transportation is supposed to be boring, but we've turned it into a personality test with leather seats. You don't just buy a car, you buy the idea that you're now someone who has their life together, which is impressive because the car immediately starts losing value the moment you believe that. The system is very gentle about this. It doesn't say, this will cost you tens of thousands over time. It says, only $748 a month, which your brain files under utilities, like electricity or vibes. Long loan terms help with that. Stretch the payment out far enough and it stops feeling like a decision and starts feeling like gravity. New cars drop in value quickly, but depreciation is abstract and the smell is real, so the smell usually wins. You tell yourself you need something reliable, which is true, and then quietly upgrade that need into a contract that lasts longer than most friendships. I've done this. I told myself it was practical while mentally parking it in front of an imaginary audience that was finally proud of me. The trick isn't never buying a car. It's noticing when reliability turns into identity, and identity turns into a payment schedule that follows you around like a polite debt ghost. And once you accept that one long contract as normal, it gets easier to accept the next one. That would be fine if it stayed limited to metal and wheels. Number 2, education that converts directly into income. Have you ever noticed how learning feels productive even when nothing actually changes afterward? Education is one of the safest feelings you can buy because it looks like effort without requiring results. We've blurred the line between learning and consuming so thoroughly that watching a 6-hour course feels like progress, even if your life looks identical when it ends. The system loves this because education products don't demand proof, just hope. You tell yourself you're investing in yourself, which sounds mature, and technically no one can argue with it. The problem is output. Real education produces something awkward. A bad first attempt, an email you don't want to send, a thing you have to show another human. That part feels risky, so we delay it by buying more context. Another course, another framework. Another "this will make it clearer" purchase at 11:38 p.m. because you feel behind and tired and slightly embarrassed by how behind you feel. I've done this too. I once learned just enough about something to feel superior and still not useful. Skills only change your life when they create income or opportunity quickly enough that you notice. Otherwise, they just decorate your sense of potential. And potential is comforting because it never asks you to ship anything yet. Number 3. A small income engine outside the main paycheck. What actually changes when money comes from more than one place is not the amount, it's your nervous system. A second income doesn't magically make you rich. It just makes you less jumpy every time an email subject line says, "quick question." When all your money comes from one source, every expense feels personal, like it's judging you. A small side income breaks that spell. Not because it's huge, but because it proves money can show up without a manager's mood attached. The catch is that people think in gross. You sell something for $100 and feel proud until fees, processing, and taxes quietly eat half of it like seagulls at a beach picnic. Then there's the setup trap. Before earning $1, people go shopping for seriousness. Logos, software, subscriptions, equipment that looks good on a desk. It feels responsible, like building infrastructure, but it's just another way to turn hope into a monthly bill. I've done this. I once owned a very professional tool for a business that didn't exist yet. The boring truth is you usually need one thing that lets you deliver and one thing that helps you find people. And then you repeat the same awkward action long enough for it to stop feeling awkward. Most people quit right before that happens because consistency feels worse than restarting with a new idea. And once you notice how fragile one paycheck feels, you start wondering why so much of it is already promised away, which leads directly to the money you never even see. Number 4, automatic ownership. Investing early and automatically. The biggest difference between people who feel calm about money and people who don't is whether their money moves before they think about it. This is where commitments and control quietly switch places. When investing is manual, it feels optional. And optional things get postponed until life settles down, which is a fun story we tell ourselves. Automatic investing flips that. The money leaves first. Your brain complains later and eventually gives up. Workplace plans are good at this because they don't ask for motivation, just consent once. IR. As do the same thing with slightly more steps and slightly more excuses. The amount matters less than the pattern, which is annoying because everyone wants the opposite to be true. Time is doing most of the work here, not brilliance. Starting earlier means compounding has more years to quietly show off, like a student who never raises their hand but still gets an A. The reason people delay isn't math, it's fear. Investing feels like a commitment, and commitments feel dangerous when you're already stretched. So you tell yourself you'll start when things are calmer, which is what everyone says right before nothing changes. I've delayed this too, usually while explaining it very rationally to myself. The irony is that automatic investing creates control, not restriction, but only after you stop negotiating with it every month. And once money is moving on its own, you start noticing how many other decisions are still draining attention on purpose. Number 5, low-cost investment setup, avoiding fees and bad defaults. If you've ever wondered how something labeled recommended quietly gets expensive, this is one of those times. Most people think investing is about picking the right thing, when it's usually about not picking the wrong default. The system is very polite about this. It auto-enrolls you, assigns you a fund, and reassures you that professionals are handling it. Which sounds great until you realize those professionals are getting paid whether you win or not. Fees feel tiny because they're percentages, and percentages feel abstract, like weather forecasts for money. But over decades, small fees compound the same way returns do, just in reverse, quietly siphoning future you while present you feels responsible for having an account. I've left money in bad defaults longer than I'd like to admit because checking felt boring and mildly intimidating. That's part of the design. High-fee options survive because they're invisible, not because they're good. Low-cost setups don't look impressive. They don't come with stories or urgency. They just sit there, doing their job, which is apparently too quiet to market properly. Once you realize how much outcome is determined by tiny settings you never touched, it becomes hard not to notice similar patterns everywhere else, especially when the purchase comes with walls and emotions. Number 6, housing decisions based on rules, not pressure. Why does renting feel like losing even when the math says otherwise? Housing is where finance and identity finally shake hands. Renting gets framed as temporary failure, while buying gets treated like a moral upgrade. In reality, renting is flexibility, which is useful when your lifestyle changes every few years. Buying can build wealth, but it also locks you into a place, a payment, and a set of assumptions about your future that may or may not age well. The mortgage is just the cover charge. Maintenance, taxes, repairs, and surprise problems are the actual bill, and they don't care how excited you were on closing day. Social pressure does a lot of the work here. You see peers buying, posting keys, leveling up, and you feel late. So you tell yourself at least the money is going somewhere, which is true, but so is the stress. I have romanticized kitchens I couldn't afford just by standing in them. The only thing that makes housing work long-term is boring rules set before emotions get involved. Without them, decisions get made by comparison and urgency, which is great for sellers and terrible for sleep. And when your housing choice tightens everything else, you start spending in ways that feel compensatory. Which brings us to the coping part. Number 7, health, capacity, and paid experiences without financing. If you're tired all the time, you're not bad with money. You're just easier to upsell. Exhaustion turns spending into self-medication. Convenience food, subscriptions, upgrades, and treat yourself moments fill gaps that rest and stability are supposed to cover. Health costs don't wait for you to feel established, and unused plans love auto-renew because forgetting is more profitable than quitting. I've paid monthly for optimism more than once. Experiences are where this gets socially dangerous. Fun is increasingly sold with financing attached, which lets you say yes now and worry later. Credit cards and pay later options turn belonging into a payment plan. Group chats light up, trips get proposed, and suddenly you're calculating interest on memories you haven't even made yet. You tell yourself you'll figure it out because you don't want to be the person who says no. The interest quietly disagrees. Experiences are great when you pay once and move on. They're much less charming when they follow you home in installments. The pattern underneath all of this is capacity. When you protect your energy, your health, and your ability to say no, spending gets calmer without effort. When you don't, money becomes the thing that absorbs every other problem, whether it's designed to or not. So this wasn't really about 7 smart purchases, even though that's what it looked like on the label. It was about how often your future gets decided by things that feel reasonable in the moment and invisible right after. Most of what we call being bad with money is just living inside systems that reward convenience, speed, and not thinking too hard when you're tired. None of this means you failed, or that you should have known better, or that there was a secret you missed in your early 20s while everyone else somehow got the memo. Awareness helps, but it doesn't magically undo commitments that are already humming along in the background, politely taking their cut every month. I still have a few of those running too, and I notice them mostly when they annoy me, which is not ideal, but very human. The uncomfortable part is realizing how calm life feels when fewer things are pre-deciding it for you, and how rare that calm actually is. Once you start seeing money this way, one category tends to stand out more than the others. It's the one that feels normal, responsible, and strangely emotional at the same time. The one that's marketed as freedom while quietly narrowing your options. If you've ever looked at a monthly number and told yourself it's fine because you can fit the payment, there's another layer sitting underneath that thought. That's where things get interesting. And that's what your car payment is actually costing you.